Hey everyone. In a video earlier this week, I talked about Prince Harry and how he constantly seems to shift to gain Meghan's approval. We explored an example where someone says, "Oh, you're into that? That's cute. I was into that in high school." The kind of comment that's dismissive, but is disguised as casual. I mentioned I had my own personal experience with that, and I wanted to share that with you. But before we begin, here's the intro. Welcome to Revealing the Narc. Join me as I highlight narcissistic traits in celebrities and public figures. Everything here is in my opinion and not professional advice. If you enjoy the analysis, please like and subscribe. So, back when I was married to my ex, who I found out later was a narcissist, I got offered a pretty great job. The problem was that the job was in another county and it was about 25 miles away. With traffic, though, we're talking about 2 hours each way every single day. My ex wasn't willing to move to accommodate my where my job was. He wanted to live where it was closer to his job. Sounds familiar, right? Like that draws parallels to things I'm sure many of us have experienced, the inability to compromise. And to make the most of my time, I started listening to audiobooks during the drive. I had read the Harry Potter series maybe a decade or so before, and I thought it would be great to revisit them. So I got all of the audiobooks for the Harry Potter series. It gave me something light, imaginative, and familiar to enjoy. I'd leave the house by 4:30 in the morning, get to work by around 6 a.m. I'd leave work at around 3 p.m. and be home around 4:30, trying to be the worst of the traffic. I was doing everything I could to manage the commute while still showing up for our home, our life, and his needs. But when we were splitting up, and this is where the narcissism really starts to shine through, he had to find reasons to devalue me as a person. And out of everything that I did, he said one time, "I can't believe you still even listen to Harry Potter. Even the kids are over Harry Potter. They are much more mature than you are." Mind you, this is the same man who proudly collected Star Wars memorabilia and would watch Lord of the Rings on repeat. But suddenly, I was childish and cringy for liking Harry Potter. And not just liking it, but I was using it to stay sane during almost 4 hour daily commute while keeping a job that benefited our family. This is what narcissists do. They don't just attack your choices, they attack your character through your choices. They take something innocent that's even self soothing and they twist it to paint you as immature, weird, or unworthy. And what's worse, they do it while they ignore their own contradictions, like being obsessed with a fantasy world themselves, because it's never really about the content. It's about control and needing to feel superior in the breakup narrative. They can't say, "I hurt her," or "I wasn't a good partner." So instead, it becomes to, "She listens to Harry Potter audiobooks." Can you believe that? It's petty and it's shallow, and it's exactly the kind of character assassination narcissists rely on to protect their own image. So, to explore this a little bit deeper, I want to talk a little bit about narcissistic devaluation because what I'm saying in this example is a textbook example of this. So, what is devaluation in narcissistic relationships? In narcissistic abuse cycles, devaluation is the second phase of the relationship, following the idealization stage where love bombing is also included. Once the narcissist starts feeling threatened by your independence, your joy, or emotional strength, they flip the script. Suddenly, things that were once neutral or even admired become ammunition, and they're rarely loud or obvious at first. Often it starts small, like sarcastic remarks, dismissive jokes, eye rolls when you talk about what you love. The goal is to chip away at your self esteem and subtly send the message, "You're not as smart, interesting, or as mature as you think you are. This is why earlier this week I had posted that Alec Baldwin interview on the red carpet. I am not talking about their characters personally. What I really wanted to point out was the interaction that was happening there. This was such devaluing, especially the part where I believe Alec Baldwin says that he feels that he's very silly and he brought silliness to the show. And Hillary shot that down immediately. Let me show you that clip right here.
I don't think you make it more silly than it is. I actually feel.
I didn't get that on the show.
No. We just cut all that part out.
Cut me out.
Cut you out when you're trying to make it silly. We cut it.
Going back to what I was describing in my story, I was commuting 2 hours each way. I was sacrificing time, energy, and sleep to show up for a job and a marriage. That is a huge commitment. Instead of him acknowledging my effort, he used the one comfort I found during that commute, the Harry Potter audiobooks, and turned it into a punchline. He compared it to his teenage kids and basically said, even they've outgrown that. You should be embarrassed. And here's where it gets twisted. This wasn't a genuine opinion. This was targeted devaluation timed during my breakup, and it was meant to undermine my identity, mock my emotional intelligence, make me question my maturity and interest, and justify his own emotional detachment. Meanwhile, his own interests, which included Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and so many others, which are just as youthful, fantastical, and fandom driven. But narcissists don't operate with consistency, they operate with narrative control. And in his story, I had to become less than. These types of attacks don't sound abusive at first, and that's what makes them dangerous. He didn't scream, he didn't insult my intelligence outright. He just planted a seed of shame in something that brought me joy and peace. That's what narcissists are good at, emotional erosion. It's not one comment, it's the pattern of little digs that make you doubt yourself, apologize for who you are, and shrink just a little more each time. There's also subtle superiority in his statement. There's this intellectual snobbery layered into what he said. He's framing Harry Potter as childish, comparing it to what the kids are over or grown out of. It positions himself as above my taste. This is him looking down on me while pretending to be just making a point. It's about this is him looking down on me while pretending to be just making a point. It's about hierarchy and not opinion. And it makes me feel like, or it made me feel like I was less mature, I was less interesting, and ultimately the goal was to make me feel less worthy. When in reality, I was listening to one of the most globally beloved and narratively rich book series ever written to cope with stress and nurture myself. That's not childish, that's emotionally intelligent. And keep in mind, I was doing this, having this long commute, accommodating him. That's the irony of the whole thing, that I was listening to Harry Potter in order to entertain myself on this long commute. So let's talk about how to reclaim your power if you end up in a situation like this. When narcissists devalue you this way, the healing comes from naming it and refusing to internalize the shame. You can say, I know exactly what that was, and it wasn't about Harry Potter. This was about control. This was about making me feel small. His opinion is not the truth. But here's the actual truth: anyone who mocks your joy is revealing their own emptiness. So, I'd like to hear from all of you. Have you ever been made to feel silly or immature for something that brought you comfort? Did an ex or family member devalue your hobbies, books, clothes, music, or emotions? And have you shrunk yourself to avoid being mocked? If you feel comfortable, please drop that in the comments. Just know you're not alone. You're not being dramatic, and it's not just a joke when it's used to tear you down. I want to thank you all so much for listening. I appreciate you all so much. If this was interesting to you, please like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you'll know every time I drop a new video. If there's anything you'd like me to cover, please also go ahead and drop that in the comments and I'll see if I can explore the topic. And once again, thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye, everybody.